Can someone please confirm you can hear me?
Can hear you.
Great. My volume seems a little low. Hmm. My computer's going to be slow because it's still making the lecture. Oh, what is it called? The lecture movie file. So please bear with me. Before we begin, are there any questions? Boy, there's 20 participants. Wow, that's really a lot for the lab. Usually there's only 20 people in the lab. And um, if you've attended the first lab, you don't need to attend the second lab. Um, Let me close out of here. I need to state that we went to here. I didn't properly close down the lecture, so let me get out of here. All right, are there any questions? Is that down? Talk a little bit about the syllabus in relationship to the lab, and then we will get to the lab exercises. I think I'm going to go to the download because I'm not sure which one of those is the one you guys have access to. Where's downloads? There it is. All right. So let's begin talking about the syllabus. All right, the lecture is almost finished, 97%. So my computer will be working shortly. Let me share my screen here. 98% now. Oops, lost it. See if there's anything to talk about here. So you should know my website. Let's talk a little bit about the lockdown browser requirements and student discussions. Uh, in order to take the quizzes in this class, you will need a Respondus Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor, and you can get them by coming to this file here, Lockdown Browser requirement, and then this link here. Oh, wait a minute, that's the video to take, video to discuss Lockdown Browser. Nope, that's the get the browser. And then the monitor. Yeah, that's a video about talking about Lockdown Browser. And there's a video about Respondus Monitor. This video isn't really made for students. Uh, and then the download instructions for the Lockdown Browser are here. I talked about you need to download Lockdown Browser, open Lockdown Browser, go to the Canvas website in Lockdown Browser, navigate to the quiz, and then take the quiz in Lockdown Browser. You'll also need Respondus Monitor to take the quiz. We already talked about that, I think. Did I talk about how to produce a good webcam in the lecture? Anyone? I'm not sure what I said in the lecture and what I said in the lab. I'm going to have to repeat myself if nobody answers. All right. Um, you want to shut down all the applications that you do not need on your computer because they'll only slow down the lockdown browser and monitor, making it more difficult for you to take the exam. You should also turn off your phone, get it out of reach, and have no AI, no phone, no computer, no notepad or other electronic device, no notes, no books within your desk, within reaching area. I'll monitor the area around your computer for any of these, and if observed, you'll get a 0 on the exam. Remain at your desk or workstation during the entire test. Otherwise, Respondus Monitor will mark your exam, and then I'll go look at it and notice you left the exam in the middle of the exam. And obviously, that's not allowed. Once you begin the exam, you have to sit there and take it and then submit it. You aren't allowed to leave the exam once you've started it. And if for some reason an emergency forces you to leave the exam, um, you'll have to email me and we'll make arrangements. Like if there's a fire in your home, I don't expect you to stay taking the exam and stay sitting at the computer. Produce a good webcam video. Avoid wearing a cap or a hat with brims. Have your computer or device on a firm, flat surface like a desk or a table. Do not have it on your lap, a bed, or another surface. Because if you move, you cause problems for the camcorder. If using the built-in webcam, avoid readjusting the tilt of the screen after the webcam setup is complete. You must be able to be seen in the monitor for the entire exam, or you will be flagged and get a 0 on the exam. Take the exam in a well-lit room. Avoid backlighting, such as sitting with your back to a window or a light source directly behind you. So Lockdown Browser will prevent you from accessing other websites or applications or programs. Respondus Monitor will ensure that there's no cheating. You will be unable to leave and exit the test until all questions are completed and submitted. And by the way, I have had 2 instances where students cheated, and I will know. Okay, I'm just going to word you that. I had one case where 2 people were taking the exam together, and that wasn't allowed. And another time where somebody was actually looking at their notes, and cheating isn't allowed. So if you have trouble with the Lockdown Browser, this will help you. You can let me know, but I won't be able to help you. Probably what you'll need to do is change one setting on your computer to get the Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor to work. And the computer help desk, the Tech Hub at clark.edu, is excellent at getting the system working on people's computers. Usually, at most, I have one student every other term who has a problem. They just need to change one setting on the computer. I think I mentioned that in the lecture. I've had one student who never got it to work, and I'm not confident that student was following what the Tech Hub suggested because the student wasn't following what I suggested. But There's only one student. We never got it to work. And what we did with this student was she had to come in and take the exams in person. Here's the requirements on this monitor. They're similar for lockdown browser. All right, if that was a repeat, that was your fault. Nobody told me that I stated that in the lecture. Like I said, I did ask you, and nobody stated anything. Let me talk about student discussions. You can get an extra credit point for putting an answer to my question, and that is, do you want the labs 3 through 9 graded one time or two times? And you can look at how that grading will happen. If the labs are graded two times, the first time the grading, I'll only tell you which question is wrong. I won't tell you what the answer is. And then by the next Saturday, I, assuming I've gotten the exam answers to you, or at least the wrong questions to you within Wednesday morning, by next Saturday, you can turn in the lab for a second grading. And so you'll have two tries to get 100%. If there's only one grading, I will grade the assignment and tell you what the correct answers were. And you only get one try. The first lab and lab 0 will be graded one time. Lab 2 will be graded two times. And then labs 3 through 9, you guys can vote on. And if you vote, I'll give you a point, extra credit point. Put it in the student discussions. And you can use this for any of your student discussing or questioning or whatever. You can use it to form a study group with other students. And if you do form a study group, I've already mentioned, you can get extra credit. And how you can do that is read about it in I think it's under week 2, extra credit study 2. Any questions about any of that? And there's other opportunities for extra credit. You can turn in the extra credit study sheet, and I know I talked about that in the lecture. All right, I think that's it for web page. If you scroll down here, you'll get the week 1 lab, where we're going to cover the module 00 on lab safety, and there's the worksheet for lab 00. On Thursday, we'll cover module 1, ubiquity of organisms. I think I talked about the Plagy quiz in the lecture. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay, and did I talk about the environmental quiz in the lecture? How you do it? I don't think I did talk
I
about
don't think
that.
you did.
Oh, you
Did I
didn't.
show you how to bend the monitor down? So you show me your computer, where the computer is sitting, and then you show me the left side of your desk. I don't know if you can see this. My desk is really cluttered, which you can't have papers and books. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a paper and there's a book. You can't have that, except in the plagiarism quiz. You can have your notes in the plagiarism quiz, but all other quizzes you cannot have notes.
We
Or
can't see because of the background that you're using.
yeah, I was afraid of that. Well,
Yeah.
here's a book on my desk, which maybe you can see it now because it's in front of my face. And a note. All right. I do need to make a note here saying no one was in attendance who wanted to add the class. Is there
Hey, I
anyone
have
in
one
attendance
question.
who wants to, just a minute, is there anyone in attendance who wants to add the class after Friday? All right, there's nobody in attendance who wants to add, so go ahead. What's your question?
So for the practice quiz on the syllabus, it said that it would be due next Wednesday, but right now it's saying that it's gonna be due tomorrow.
Go with what is on the web page here. Not tomorrow, is it? It's going
The
to be
practice
Friday.
quiz. The
Oh,
practice
the
quiz.
practice quiz. Yeah, that shouldn't be due tomorrow. Yep, that's wrong. Let me see if all the quizzes are wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
It looks like in week two, a lot of the things are due at the end of this week on Canvas.
Let me take a look at this in a minute. I'm going to check on the quizzes here. So let me see when, oh shoot, when this quiz is due. Well, I guess I don't need to do that, but let's see here. So this one is due October 1st. Look at the syllabus here. This quiz should be Wednesday, like September 31st. And then quiz one should be like October 8th. So that's wrong. So all my quizzes have the wrong date. When I moved it over from the, where is that? Last term, it looks like it took the wrong weeks for the quizzes. So I'm going to have to adjust all the dates of the quizzes. Except for obviously this week's quizzes are right. Almost all the quizzes have the wrong dates. It looks like I'll need to move them down one week. All right, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Practice quiz 00, it is the wrong date, and I'm not going to change it because um, almost all the quizzes are wrong. And there was another question somebody was asking, what was that?
It looked like some of the due dates for week two lab requirements were also due at the end of this week in Canvas.
Well, that would make sense if it screwed up the quiz dates. It may have screwed up the lab dates. Yep, that's wrong. Obviously, worksheet lab 2 should not be September 27th. I don't think. Yeah, that should be September 4th. All right. So the dates of a lot of the assignments are wrong. At least the worksheets. The syllabus has the right dates, and Canvas has the wrong dates, and I'll have to change that. I'll try and get that done after the lab today. And that'll take me a while, so don't be expecting me to get it done early after the lab, but maybe within like 10 p.m. I'll get it done. Any questions about any of that? So it looks like the worksheets, as well as maybe some of the other assignments, have the wrong dates, and then definitely the quiz dates. Looks like all of them are wrong, except for maybe this week's quiz dates. It's funny that quiz week 1 is correct because that's all I checked. I didn't check the others, which was my mistake. But I had to get the page up and running. by Monday and actually got it up and running on Sunday, and I didn't check further. All right, any questions beyond that stuff? Let's get back to where we were. I was talking about the extra credit assignments. Let's go back to the syllabus. Talked about the grading lecture, correct? All right, we'll talk about the microscope use in the lab and the virtual labs when we come to the microscope lab. Oh, I know what I need to talk about. I need to talk about laboratory safety. Safety information for students and physicians. This is mainly for students who are attending an online computer lab at Clark College, but you do need to know this information for your own safety use as well as for the exams. Microbiology labs are operated at a biosafety level 2, personal protective equipment, lab coats, gloves, goggles, etc. required for use in this lab. Now realize goggles are only required when you have a splash hazard. Access to the laboratory restricted. You cannot bring somebody who's not registered for the course in without letting the instructor know and getting approval from the instructor. Safety equipment is especially important for students who are immunocompromised or living or caring for immune-compromised individuals or are pregnant or may become pregnant. Now, because we're an online class, you will never be exposed to microorganisms, but you should know this information. Safety rules. Safety is one of the main skills that your employer will want you to learn in microbiology. We're not going to be physically meeting in the microbiology lab, so your learning will all be online. Safety is of primary importance in a microbiology lab. Never take shortcuts which risk safety and accuracy. You can read about not following the rules because you won't really do it because you'll be online. You cannot take things into your lab bench into the lab proper. They must remain in your bag in a space provided for bags and coats and books and whatnot. We call it the cubby holes. And that region is not considered in the lab, that is external to the lab, where your books and the bags are kept. All required equipment, paper, pencils, will be provided for you. They are already in the lab. You have a drawer, and that'll have paper and pencils and other writing utensils in it. And those should stay in the lab and never leave the lab. If by chance you bring in a pen or you want to take your notes home, you cannot take them out of the lab until they're put in bleach or disinfectant for 15 minutes or put in the autoclave for disinfection. And then you can take those things out of the lab. Now, most pens probably would be destroyed in the autoclave, but they may survive putting in disinfectant. And then paper could go either way as long as you write in pencil. All personal items, books, bags, purses, cell phones, coats must be stored in the cubbyhole, which is right after the door when you enter the lab. The door and the cubbyholes, or the cabinets, are considered external to the lab. You then walk a few feet into the lab proper, walk to the sink, and you wash and scrub your hands. Washing correctly for 20 seconds, getting the soap and water everywhere. You then turn off the water, dry your hands with paper towels, walk over to where the lab coat is being stored on a hanger, put on the lab coat, put on your gloves. If you're going to be working with a splash hazard, you walk over to where the safety goggles are kept and put on the safety goggles. Usually in microbiology lab, we do not have a splash hazard, so you do not need to wear safety goggles. But if ever we have microorganisms in a liquid culture, we do not want you getting a splash hazard of microbes in your eyes, so you must wear safety goggles. If ever we're working with chemicals which can be harsh, if you splash them into your eye, meaning they can damage your eye, you have to wear safety goggles. Usually, other than the Bram stain, we do not have harsh chemicals in the lab which require the use of safety goggles, but maybe once or twice we do. Cell phone is not permitted in the lab, or any other thing that's taken into the lab proper, like taken to your lab bench, will be confiscated and you will not get it back until it has been put in a bucket of disinfectant or autoclave, and that would destroy your cell phone. We do have a lab phone in the lab. I didn't mention that to the other lab. To use it, you can use your gloves. You can dial out in that lab. If your cell phone is ringing, I didn't mention that to the other lab too. I should mention that to the other lab. And if you want to answer it, you need to take off your gloves, take off your lab coat, go to the sink, wash your hands, go to the cubbyhole, get your phone, take the phone out of the lab, answer the phone, in which case the phone probably will stop ringing. You have to call them back, but you can call them back, continue your conversation, finish your conversation, come into the lab, put away your phone, go to the sink, wash your hands, dry your hands, go to the gloves, put on gloves, go to the lab coat, sorry, put on your lab coat, go to the gloves, put on your gloves. And then you can go back to your lab bench. Any question about that? Questions? That would be a very cumbersome procedure.
Sorry, do you think you could tell us what we're supposed to wear before we enter the lab?
So you're trying to answer a question in the worksheet? We will get to that. Okay. All right. Exceptions. You are allowed to take some personal items into the lab if you are wearing them, such as jewelry. We do not request that you take jewelry off. However, you shouldn't touch them, like you're wearing earrings, shouldn't touch the earrings. You can wear a watch into the lab, although the watch should be below your glove. You can also wear glasses into the lab. If you have hearing aids, you can wear hearing aids into the lab. Any question about any of that? And here's a big one. You can wear your clothes into the lab, right? That's something you're taking a personal item into the lab with you. You should consider all cultures you're working with to be potentially pathogenic. That means they can cause illnesses. Keep hands, pencils, and other materials out of the orifices in your face, meaning out of your mouth, your ears, your nose, etc. There's no eating or drinking, smoking, gum chewing, or other oral habit allowed in the lab. You must wear gloves. You must wear closed-toed shoes while in the lab. If you have thongs, ladies' fancy open-toed shoes, sandals, they cannot be worn in the lab. I would kick you out of a live microbiology lab if you came into the lab that way. And we want a closed-toed shoe so that if you spill any liquid culture or drop a beaker of liquid culture, you have the minimum closed-toe shoe to protect you. And it might be a tennis shoe, not offering much protection, but some, much more than like sandals. Any question about that? You may wear sandals or open-toed shoes or thongs on your feet for Clark College, but when you come to the microbiology lab, you should switch your shoes when you either before you enter the lab or right after you enter the door before you walk away from the cubbyhole. Any question about that? Lab coats also required to be worn in the lab. They must be buttoned. You either purchase a lab coat, in which case it would be brought into the lab only one time at the very start of the term, or you can use a lab coat that we have in the lab already, and it's been sterilized, washed, sterilized, and being autoclaved, and then made available for students that term. You put your name on it, and only you will be using that lab coat all term long. Goggles are only required when there's a splash hazard. Cleanliness is a virtue in microbiology. You must disinfect your lab bench both before you begin your work. So after you come into your lab, put on your lab coat, put on your gloves, walk over to your lab bench. You should clean off the lab bench with disinfectant and paper towels. And then before you go, after you've done your work, you should also clean off your lab bench to remove any microbes that your work may have dropped on the lab bench or the lab area where you've been working with. And then before you go, you take off your gloves, you take off your lab coat, you go to the sink, wash your hands, dry your hands, and then go to your cubbyhole, grab your things, and then you can leave. Any question about any of that procedure? You should note we have fire extinguishers or fire blanket, eye wash station, first aid material in the lab. Accidents should be reported immediately to your instructor. Minor accidents should be cleaned as the follow. Always clean broken glass first. If it is contaminated, you must put disinfectant on the area first. Let it sit for 15 minutes. Cover the area with paper towels to wick the disinfectant everywhere. And after 15 minutes, you then remove the paper towels, unless there's glass attached to them, and you put them in the biohazard because there's bacteria there. And remove the glass using a dustpan and a broom. Put the broken glass in the broken glass container, and then wipe up the remaining spill with paper towels and put those paper towels in the biohazard container. Any question about any of that? You need to keep, what?
I said no, no questions.
Okay. Be sure to keep hair and paper away from Bunsen burners and back to incinerators. Long hair should be either tied back or wear a hairnet or wear a cap or a hat, something like that. Gas and back to incinerators should be turned off before you leave the lab. And if you're done using them, you should also turn them off so they're not going in the lab. Mouth pipetting is never allowed. Never take cultures out of the lab. Samples can only be brought into the lab after you've cleared it with your instructor. If you have a cut or a sore on your hand, you should go wash your hands the normal way, then go to the first aid kit and put on a Band-Aid, and then put the glove over the Band-Aid. When you leave the lab, you should take off the glove, obviously take off the lab coat, take off the glove, go wash your hands. If you want a fresh Band-Aid, you can then go to the first aid kit, put on a fresh Band-Aid, and then leave in the normal fashion. Discarding Material must be discarded in the proper place. Agar plates, we have petri dishes or agar plates, which are plastic. They should be placed in the biohazard container. Unless it's a plate which does not have any microbes in it, which let's say you grab a plate and it dried out and you never grew anything in it, then it can go in the trash can. But most of the time it'll be in the biohazard container. Glass slides are put in the glass slide container, cotton swabs in the cotton swab container, cover slips in the cover slip container. Both of these containers contain disinfectant. We will, obviously, the disinfectant should disinfect the slides, but it'll be disinfected and then they'll be washed, cleaned, which is, I guess, washed, and dried, and then the slides will be reused. We do not reuse the cover slips, so they will be just put in the broken glass container and discarded eventually. And the cotton swabs are disinfected in the cotton swab container, and I assume that's going to sterilize it. I'm not sure what happens, but my guess is the lab person will take them away and then throw them in the regular trash once they're disinfected. Supplies needed for the lab will be in the front of the lab. Each pair of students will be assigned a drawer. In the drawer, you will have writing utensils and paper. You may not take the writing utensils, the paper, or your notes home. So how do you take your notes home? Does anyone have a guess? There is a way.
You take a picture.
You take
On
a
your
picture.
phone?
We have, what are those called? iPads in the lab. Take a picture with the iPads. You email it to yourself, and then you can take it home. Now remember, the area where your bags and your coat and your books are stored is considered outside the lab. So is the door that you enter to enter the room. But the lab is a few feet in from that. Any question about any of that? You are required to learn these and obviously follow them if you were to go into a real lab. All right, I think that's it for the syllabus. Let's go to the lab 1 or lab 0, sorry. Working on it, there we go. It's just extremely slow. I thought the I didn't know it finished. All right. Lab module 00 on laboratory safety. Online students will not be working the lab, but you do need to know this material, and many of these rules are relevant during your career. The primary learning objectives today: 1, be able to distinguish between safe and unsafe laboratory practices. 2, understand where relevant safety equipment is located in the lab. You don't need to know that, you just need to know what safety equipment we have in the lab. And then 3, understand how to safely dispose of contaminated materials. Microbiologists are expected to follow a number of safety rules when they're working with potentially pathogenic microorganisms. Remember, every organism you work with in a microbiology lab, you can assume is potentially pathogenic. You're not actually going to be performing any of these activities because everything we do will be done online, but it is important for you to understand the guidelines and to help you understand to create a safe laboratory environment. Safety precautions include wearing a clean lab coat that covers your lap when sitting, meaning it's buttoned, disposable gloves, closed-toed shoe, I'm trying to point to them, goggles when there's a splash hazard. I'm not sure if this individual is wearing glasses, their own glasses in the lab to see, or if they have goggles on. You only need to wear goggles when there is a splash hazard. Most of the time in microbiology, there is not a splash hazard. All right, any question about any of that? Long hair should be either tied back or you wear a hat or a safety net. This lady is wearing a safety net to hold down her hair. Absolutely no food or drink in the lab. No using electronics in the lab. No personal items are allowed in the lab, including a cell phone. Any personal item you bring into a microbiology lab will be confiscated, and you will not get it back until it's been soaked in disinfectant for 15 minutes or it's been autoclaved, and that will destroy electronics. Oh, this picture is important for answering the questions about what you can bring into the lab for safety that you put on before you enter the lab. So in this picture, can anyone name one thing that was put on for safety before they entered the lab?
Gloves.
Lab coat.
Nope, that was not put on before you entered the lab. Good guess.
Shoes.
Say again, closed-toed shoes. Yeah, that was a good one. All right, so this picture is something you need to answer that question, which I think somebody asked me, what do you put on in the lab for safety before you enter the lab? And it's not a lab coat. And let's quickly go to the questions here. For answering this question, rule 1 in the lab, what do you always wear for safety before you enter the lab? This is not directly stated in the lab, but is shown in the picture. And then rule 2, after you enter the lab, what 2 items do you put on to keep yourself safe in the lab? Some people put, in rule 1, put on a lab coat. And in rule 2, they say, put on a lab coat. Now I ask you, would anyone ever put on a lab coat before they enter the lab and after they enter the lab? It's a yes or no question, people. What's the answer?
No.
Yeah, you're not ever going to put on a lab coat both before you enter the lab and then after you enter the lab. The lab coats are stored in the lab, so they're you put on only after you enter the lab. Okay? And then you should also answer all the questions for each asterisk, meaning rule 1 requires 4 answers. If you erase an asterisk, you'll only confuse yourself. I know how many asterisks there are in each question, so you're not going to confuse me. And if you only answer 3 questions, you'll get 1 part of rule 4 incorrect. So don't erase the asterisks, put in an answer for each asterisk. Any questions about any of that? All right. Let's go back to the lab module. I've already mentioned you must keep your work area clean and uncluttered. Particularly, that means you disinfect the area before you begin work. This is actually a picture of the Clark College microbiology lab. You disinfect it just by spraying disinfectant on the surface area and then wiping it with a paper towel. You do that both before you begin any work and then after you're done when you're ready to leave for the day. Discarded waste microbial receptacles. Regular trash includes non-sharp objects, no glass, non-contaminated objects, non-contaminated gloves, meaning gloves that you haven't gotten bacteria on, can go in the trash can. On the other hand, if you spill bacteria or you touch bacteria with the gloves should be put in the autoclave bag, which is the biohazard trash. Any question about that? So the trash can, anything that is not contaminated, not glass, We don't really use sharps in microbiology, but no sharps in the trash can. A sharp would be something like a razor blade. We don't use those. We don't even use needles. If the gloves or let's say your paper towels have bacteria on them, contaminated, they then go in the biohazard container. You never put glass in the biohazard container. If it is contaminated glass and it's a test tube, you put it in the test tube holder in the back of class. For beakers and bottles and other glass tubes, which we don't really use in microbiology, they go in the back of the class by the test tubes. For cotton swabs, they go in the cotton swab container. Slides, they go in the slide container. The cover slips, they go in a different container. Each of these containers have disinfectant in it to sterilize either the swabs, the slides, and the cover slips. You should note that all materials which have potentially pathogenic organisms must be sterilized prior to disposal or reuse. If you're unsure how to dispose of something, please ask your instructor. I've already talked about spills. Do I need to say anything further about them? You should keep lids on bottles when the bottle is not in use. Never pour reagents back into a container. Don't pour chemicals down the drain without getting permission. No mouth pipetting ever in the lab. No sticking anything into your mouth. Pencils, fingers, whatever. Or any other orifice of your face, by the way. You have an itchy eye, you should go wash your hands, leave the lab, scratch your eye, come back into the lab. You have to wash your hands, put on gloves, put on a lab coat, but you get the idea. Bunsen burners and back to incinerators should be turned off when you're finished using them, and obviously turned off when you're ready to leave the lab. Here's some safety equipment we have in the microbiology lab. A fire alarm, if ever there's a fire, you can hit that. First aid kit, if ever you need a first aid kit. That is a fire blanket right there, which you can wrap around someone to put out a fire. You can also get under the deluge shower and have the water put out the fire. If you ever spill large amounts of something caustic on your body, you can get under the deluge shower. Not likely to happen, but possibility. That's why we have it. Eye wash station. You ever get something in your eye, you can go to the eye wash station and wash it out. There's a fire extinguisher right there for putting out a fire. Any questions about the safety equipment we have in the lab? Fortunately, in the microbiology lab or any other college lab, I've never had to use any of these. The only one I've ever used was an eye wash station, which was actually some doctor when I was at MD Anderson Hospital, got something in his eye, and I took him to the eye wash station to wash it out of his eye. The only time I've ever used any of the safety equipment. And believe me, that's the way I want it to be, where I never have to ever use it again. The deluge shower, by the way, puts this water on the floor. We do have a drain in the floor, but it'll obviously get the floor wet. So try not to use it if you ever have the inkling. Obviously, you need it, use it. All right, I've already talked about lab procedures and safety rules. All right, any question about the lab? If not, let's go to the worksheet.
I have, oh wait, I have a question on the worksheet.
Okay, I'm going to go through the worksheet. I've already
Okay.
talked about rule 1 and rule 2, so I'm not going to talk further. Do you have a question about rule 1 or rule 2?
No.
All right. Rule 3, look up the safety data
Oh
sheet.
wait, actually I do.
Okay.
For rule one, could long pants be one of the asterisk.
Did you put it on before you entered the lab?
Yeah.
Well, then it's a yes.
Okay.
All right. Rule 3, look up a lab safety data sheet online. Each of the chemicals in our lab has a lab safety data sheet that describes something about the chemical. Provide at least a phrase for each of the answers. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers in Rule 3. And your answer should generally apply to any chemical. So don't say something that applies only to CO2, like when using CO2 in a lab and you're using lots of this CO2, make sure you have proper ventilation so the CO2 doesn't build up in the lab and then you don't have enough oxygen to breathe in. So don't mention something like that because that's only something that would apply to CO2 or some other gas that you don't want building up in the lab, which I guess would be every gas except for oxygen. But my point is, you want something to say something like, not something specific to CO2, like use proper ventilation, but something like the appropriate handling of the material, of the chemical. Okay, any question about that? So that's how you answer Rule 3. Rule 5, name 5 safety items, safety equipment found in the lab. And we just talked about that.
For rule 4, would I just like list fire extinguisher or
That is one answer.
okay, thank you.
Rule 5, name 2 items that you can take into the lab. And these should be items that you can take into any lab because the lab coat you would only take into the very first lab. So I will not accept that answer. But you can say, oh, I don't know, something else that you're wearing can be taken into the lab anytime. And then the third answer, the third asterisk, can you eat and drink in the lab? That's a yes or no question. And then question 2, list one item of laboratory attire that you must wear in a microbiology lab. And then 3, list one item belonging to you that is allowed to be brought into a microbiology lab. And then 4, list one item belonging to you that is not allowed in a microbiology lab. And then 5, just remind you to make sure you turn in this lab as well as lab 1 by 8 a.m. Friday of week 1. Any questions about the lab? If not,
Yeah, I
go
have
ahead.
one, sorry.
Go ahead.
For question 3, would an example be your clothes? Because you have to wear that. You have to bring that in.
Yes, but you should be a little more specific.
Like the clothes that I'm wearing today.
Well, you should say something like pants,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
Which isn't a big one for 3 because you only need to list one item, but on one of them you got to list more than one item. So clothes wouldn't be the best answer. Okay, any questions? If not, I'll be here until 8 o'clock to answer questions or until the last student logs out. When the last student logs out, I too will log out.
Thank you.
All right,
So
go ahead with your question.
I was supposed to be in the lab for I think it was like 5 to 6:30, and I came to this one because I missed the first one. Is it okay if I came to the second one?
It's okay. The labs are at 2:30 and 6:30. The
Okay.
lecture is at 5.
Okay.
So you missed the lecture?
I believe so.
All right, you'll need to view the lecture on my YouTube website once I get it up. I have a
Okay.
feeling I'm going to be very late today because I've got to change a lot of my due dates in the on Canvas.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
So I do have a question also. So we'd be going through and
kind of editing the schedule for like the assignments and quizzes. So for this week, is it only going to be the chapter 1 and chapter 2 syllabus practice quiz, the extra credit worksheet, and then this exercise that we're doing right now?
As I stated, the syllabus, let me show you that,
Okay.
is correct.
Okay.
So follow the syllabus,
Okay.
okay?
So the
Um,
syllabus is correct. Okay, I'll just look into that then. I just wanted to make sure everything is turned in on time, so.
yeah, the Canvas webpage has some, well, actually a lot of errors, and that's why I've got
Yeah.
to spend time correcting it. Actually, I thought week 1 was correct because I did look up week 1. Um, but it's the later weeks which are incorrect.
Okay, let me take a look here.